Hello Animorphs fans and welcome back to the Animorphs universe. We're doing another AniLysis today and it is on the racetrack. Hence the image of horse racing. This racetrack was only in book 14, The Unknown. So let's look at the plot points behind it, shall we? Firstly, why were they going to the racetrack? Well, they'd just been to the drylands, where they found Zone 91. Obviously, Area 51, but with a different name. And they want to see what's going on inside there, because there's obviously some Yerk activity going on. And the only animal they see wandering around freely are horses. And there are also horse controllers, or so they think. And so the best idea is, let's go get some horse morphs. Now, they can't obviously all morph the same horse, and Cassie does have a horse, but yeah, they need to vary it up a bit, and they probably don't want to use Cassie's horse, because that would, in some way, perhaps lead the Yerks back to where the animals are, Cassie's barn. So this is where they get the idea to go to the racetrack. The racetrack, Rachel said. They have tons of horses out there, usually a couple of dozen at least. I've gone there with my dad, last weekend in fact. That's his idea of a cool place to take his daughters on visitation day. Jake looked at his watch. He was getting that slightly exasperated look he gets sometimes when no one is sticking to business. Okay, look, we go to the track. No one bets. We acquire some horse DNA. Then we fly out to the drylands and spy on the modest horses. So that is the purpose of the racetrack. The animals go there in order to collect horse morphs for all 6 of them. It's as simple as that, really. Now, the animals start off at Cassie's barn, and then they have to go to the racetrack. So where exactly is the racetrack? Well, we get a few little hints. It wasn't far to the racetrack. We flapped up and away from the barn. Look at that Burger King dumpster. Oh man, it's loaded with French fries and leftover burger. Look, out behind that Papa John's, pepperoni. Anyway, we eventually made it to the racetrack. Now, we've done this map a few times, and as we go on through the series, it'll develop and probably be done in something other than MS Paint. But regardless, here is the Animorphs town. So this big white bit is the bounds of the city or the town. So, and then you've got the ocean here, you've got the river running through. We have done an AniLysis on the river, as well as the mall, which I suspected was up here somewhere. And this little burgundy hut here is Cassie's barn. So they set off from Cassie's barn, and it isn't far to the racetrack, whereas previously, when, for example, we talked about the mall, they said it was the other side of town to the gardens, which I suspected was over here, so it's quite far away. So with that in mind, saying it wasn't far to the racetrack probably means it's closer to Cassie's barn than, say, the mall is to the gardens. And since I've got Cassie's barn up here, close to the forest, because it is, and the river, which heads up to the mountains, Cassie's barn must be on the outskirts of the town, opposite to the sea. So you're understanding why this map is the way it is. This area down here with the squiggly burgundy lines, that's downtown. You know, where we get like the what did we have? It's basically the waterfront, where you get like the Planet Hollywood and all the hippity hop celebrities coming in. That's their area by the river, close to the sea. So that's explaining this whole map. The mountains are up that way. So Cassie's barn is just here, south of the river that bends back towards the forest, and just northwest of the rest of the city. So it isn't far to the racetrack, which means that it can only really be, I reckon, it will be on the outskirts of town. It wouldn't be in the centre of town. But I reckon it's either around, hold on, I've got the fill brush on. Here we go. It'll be about here or here. One of those 2 spots. We've got to remember as well, in those quotes, you may be wondering why one of them was there, where they're talking about Burger Kings and Papa John's. So they flew from Cassie's barn to the racetrack, and they obviously flew over a Burger King and a Papa John's. So it's not likely to be, for instance, over here by the forest, where all you've got is like grassland in between. No, they would be flying probably adjacent to the city or the outskirts of the city, where you do get things like Burger King or Papa John's in those areas, or at least in the same area. So I'm reckoning it's up here, north of the city, because you'll have your freaking Burger Kings up here or something. Then you got Papa John's on the outskirts as well. So you get that flight from Cassie's barn up to the racetrack, and you get to go over Burger King and Papa John's. Hopefully you can see it all right on there. I haven't screen recorded it this time, so you're having to watch me do it on the screen here. But basically, Cassie's barn, northwest, and I reckon the racetrack is to the east, basically. Still on the northern side of the city, but still, you know, as the bird flies, you still go over things like Papa John's and Burger King, so you're still going over some sort of built-up area. Unless I get contradictory evidence otherwise, my town map now looks like this with the racetrack up here on the northern side of town, just breaching the area where there's no town build-up. That's what this light green means. It's like fields and stuff like that. The darker green is forest leading up to the mountains. The light green is area that's more fields and not really built up. Hence why Cassie's barn is there in that bit. So now that the Animorphs have travelled to the racetrack, what does the racetrack itself look like? From the air, the track was a big, long dirt oval, outlined with a white rail fence. There was a high, covered grandstand on one side, and various long, narrow horse barns stretching out behind the stands. The parking lot was about half full with cars and trucks pulling horse trailers. There was a good crowd of people, up in the seats and milling around behind the track itself. Out in the middle of the oval was a big electronic tote board. It was already posting the odds for the first race. "Anyone see a good place to demorph?" Rachel asked. "There must be some empty stalls in the barns," Tobias suggested. "Just fly in and land." "Or we could go check out the trash behind the clubhouse," Marco suggested. We figured seagulls wouldn't be too obvious flying around the racetrack barns and paddocks. We get a pretty good description of the layout of the racetrack, and so I've done another MS Paint job here, and hopefully you can see it better than you probably saw the last one. You've got the dirt oval racetrack in the middle. Obviously not a completely good oval shape, but my gammy hand ain't gonna draw a perfect oval, is it? So you've got that bit there, and you've got this tote board in the middle. I hope you understand that black bit in the middle represents a tote board. You know, those ones that stick up and look in various directions with numbers, betting odds written on them. So that's in the middle section there. And then this block here with the black outline and the red seats, that is the main stand. There's probably other little stands around here, like where I've put these little white blocks here. Those are just miscellaneous buildings that I've done to fill that space. You know, you'd think have things like toilet facilities, burger vans, or hot dog stands, whatever you Americans say. I've put loads of them there. These 4 long brown blocks are the barns. Okay, so those are the barns behind the big grandstand here. Some of these yellow blocks are paddocks as well. These ones down at the right are outside the bounds of the racetrack. So you've got this brown fence running around the whole facility, because you don't want people just sneaking in. You've got to pay to get in, obviously. Surrounded by forest, because we're on the north side of the town. Most of the forest spreads to the north of the racetrack, behind the barns and the grandstand. Just disclaimer, by the way, it's completely arbitrary, effectively, which side I'm putting the grandstand. I've just put it on the northern side because we don't get any information, so we might as well just come up with it ourselves. Car park here is on the left, and beside that is the clubhouse, which Marco mentioned. So the clubhouse will be basically where like the jockeys and the owners of the ring would gather after a day and have a pint with each other. You know, that's where the main bar is going to be, and like the wedding location where people have their freaking whatevers events. So that's typically what a clubhouse is. At least it is in this country. But that's over here beside the car park. So people can go into the clubhouse straight from the car park, or they can come round onto this path, which leads all around the outside of the oval from the car park. Yeah, I think that's... I mean, I'm going to flash it up on the screen now. I've gone through every bit of this. So car park on the left, the 4 barns behind the main grandstand on the northern side, the oval race ring, race course, and on the right, the white boxes are miscellaneous buildings, so burger stands, utilities, changing rooms, whatever. Paddocks as well, because there's paddocks apparently. Apart from that, we really don't get much information. We just get the rather basic layout of what is there. And then we never really explore anything. Obviously, Cassie morphs Minneapolis Max and goes around the racetrack, but it's an oval. There are a few mentions of the white railings as well, hence why I've drawn the white railings in there. But I think that's pretty basic. I don't think... Then again, it's Minneapolis Max. It probably is actually quite a big location. It's probably a notorious... Notorious, is that the right word? Notable race course, or racetrack as they call it in certain parts of America, apparently. Yeah, we don't really get much description apart from what I've already read, but we do get a description of the inside of the barns. We swooped low and fast along the back wall of a barn. The stalls were in 2 long rows, opening out to the outside on one side, and into a long connecting hallway on the other side. Sure enough, about half the stalls were empty. He struck with his deadly tail, but not at the men. In less than a half second he had sliced the overhead railing that framed the stall. He'd sliced right through it in 2 places. The railing, a chunk of 8x8 lumber, fell directly on the men's heads. These barns are basically long units with horse stalls on either side. I mean, that's a pretty basic structure you'd imagine. And they also seem to be built largely out of wood, hence why the frame of the stall is this big 8x8 bit of lumber that kills the 2 unfortunate old men. By the way, I did an AniLysis on them. Go check that out at the end of this video. I'll put a link on it in one of those boxes that appears about 15 seconds before the video ends. I'll do that. Go check that one out. But yeah, mostly made out of wood, long unit with horses on either side, basically forming one long corridor. That's about it. What else do you know about this racetrack? Well, there's only one other thing I can really throw out there, and it's basically just miscellaneous information. I heard the trumpet announcing the start of a race, and I heard the crowd outside in the grandstand murmuring in anticipation. I've only ever been to see horse racing once, and I never went back again because I think 2 out of 3 of the horses I bet on died during the race, so I thought, this ain't for me, I'm not being responsible. Superstitious part of me was like, nah, that's clearly a sign that I do not want to be doing this. Okay? But I don't remember a trumpet, but maybe it's an American thing or certain races. There's a trumpet at the start. That sort of thing going on. But that's that. And that is the race course. So there really isn't much else about it. It is just a location for them to pick up a certain morph. So we don't go into too much detail. There's no yerk activity that we know of. We just know that hijinks ensue, someday all horses will be blue, Cassie morphs Minneapolis Max and wins the race, and so everybody's happy. That's basically what happens. They eventually get all their horse morphs and they eventually go off to the drylands. The racetrack has served its purpose and never shows up again. But there we go. This is what AniLysis is all about. It's about looking at each unit of the Animorphs picture and going over what we know about it and maybe throwing a bit of speculation in there as well. So we've looked at what the relative design of it is, we've looked at where it is on the map from what we know so far, and we also know that Axe learnt a lot from it too. I understand what a racetrack is now. A place where horses chase each other in circles as humans scream. So we've all learnt something today, even Axe. Thank you very much, Racetrack. There really wasn't that much point to you, but we got a few good moments out of you, including the someday all horses will be blue, the 2 old men, and Minneapolis Max Cassie winning the race. So I really did like book 14. I do. I've got a soft spot. It's a bit filler, but it's got a lot of good moments in it, and the racetrack was one. So thank you, Racetrack. Let's move on and see what's next in the great AniLysis saga. Like last time, we've got everything from book 1 up to and including book 25, including side books and Animorphs 1 thrown in there as well. So next time we could have anything from Andalite Schools, Ocean World, or the Hyatt Hotel. What's it gonna be? Tell us, oh mighty spin the wheel. Open sesame. Abracadabra, alakazam, Krabby Kingler. What's it going to be? The other airport. Okay, the other, not the airport, the other airport. Stay tuned, everyone. So yeah, that's going to be the topic of the next AniLysis. I'm happy. I can't complain. We're getting a lot of small, obscure-ish ones, which means I am building up a backlog. By the time, well, as of the recording of this episode right now, the Andalite AniLysis has just gone up, and I've built up a backlog. There's like a month's worth of AniLysis ready to go, which is good. Means I can concentrate on other things. So thank you very much for watching, and tune in next time where we'll talk about the other airport. I think it's the one in book 16, The Warning. And I shall see you somewhere else in the Animorphs universe. Ta-ra!